Line's good.
Never on!
Whoa.
Hard! Release!
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
The hair high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham. Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, hi. Welcome to our show.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be here for sure. Been a minute, but curling's happening.
Yeah, curling is goings on. So this is the first time, Scott, we've talked since curling returned to the TV. We did not talk after the points bet spiel. I mentioned a little bit why last week in the episode, but now we've also missed, previewing at least, the first Grand Slam of the season, which is in the books.
That's right. In the books. What is it? The Tour Challenge?
Tour Challenge.
Yeah, down in a lovely Niagara Falls, Sean. When's the last time you went to Niagara Falls?
Oh, been a minute. Does like St. Catharines count? Brock University. I was there in 2013 or 14.
Does St. Catharines count? That's like the dumbest question I've ever heard. It's on the other side of the Welland Canal, Sean. It's not even the next body of water being the Niagara River.
That's not a natural body of water, though. We had to build it.
Yeah,
Doesn't count.
It did. What do you mean it doesn't count? It's pretty good.
Well, I mean, it doesn't count as like a real obstacle. We invented it for ourselves. It's like saying, well, there's a speed bump there, so it's but we put it there. We could take it away.
Could we?
Sure, why not? Fill it in.
Fill in the Welland Canal.
Fill it in. I'm pretty sure there are people here in this town who would not object to filling in the Rideau Canal to get more lanes to drive on. You know, because things get in the way.
Yeah,
it seems to be a movement here, but not an actual movement. But it seems to be that the way things are going. But no, so that's probably the closest that I'd been to Niagara Falls in the last few years. What about you?
Okay, I drove past the falls when I went to Buffalo a couple of years ago. I went to watch some baseball. I think it was 2019.
Okay.
2018 or 19. Bo Bichette was still playing with the Bison. So nice. 2018 probably. Yeah, and then drove past the old falls on my way back, and it was pretty fun. They're pretty nice. It is a bit kitschy.
Sure.
On the Canadian side, but hey, we've had curling in Vegas. Who says we can't have curling in Niagara Falls?
Absolutely. So yeah, a wonderful time there in Vegas. Saw a lot of the teams took the opportunity to get out to the falls to see them in all their glory. A lot of water going over the edge there, Scott. A lot of water.
That it is, Sean. It's a lot of water, and don't want to get in the way of the water. That's for sure.
Absolutely not. So now with the first slam in the books with the Tour Challenge, Scott, we thought it'd be fun because we didn't preview the event or really the Grand Slam season in general. It'd be to talk more generally about the Grand Slam of curling. A couple years ago, we did an episode of ways that we would improve the Grand Slam circuit, essentially trying to differentiate the events from each other. The Tour Challenge is probably the most different of the events in terms of its format in the tournament itself. Mm-hmm. Although it's not really that different because they have two versions of the same thing, but still there's more people there. But in terms of the format, it's not really that different. You just get to see different teams. So we want to talk about what the Grand Slam circuit is at this point. Where are we with the Grand Slams? Do they mean anything relative to bigger trends within the sport when we're talking about Olympics and world championships, those sorts of things? But Scott, just as a quick overview, how do you think of the Grand Slams here in the fall of 2023, now that it's, I think, over a decade, or at least a decade, where they have been owned by Rogers, they've been on Sportsnet, they're established as very much a regular thing on the calendar. They seem to have settled on what their schedule is going to be. Still some room for change, clearly, as the Champions Cup is not for this year. So still some adjustments being made. But where do you think we are with the slams?
Yeah, I think so. The slams are made for TV events.
Just not the first 2 days.
Just not the first 2 days, but having gone to them, I get that impression too, right? Like it's not jam packed like for the Briar or the Scotties, but what I think they represent is sort of the best teams in the world playing each other as tune-ups to what TSN would call the Season of Champions, to those national and world events. Now, like it's not true for everybody, right? Because the Continental Challenge, what's it called?
The Pan-Continental Championship?
The championship, yeah.
I say championship? Championship.
It is in the
everyone's
fall.
chomping at the bit to get there, so
or champing at the bit. So
however you want to say it.
I that's how I see them, Sean. I see them as like kind of, you know, you drop in on them to watch the curling. Maybe the first one more than the others, because you know it's been so long since you've seen these teams. That's what it is to me. It's not must watch appointment viewing the way the other things are, the other events later in the season. It's more of a preview of what's to come and a tune-up for the teams and the players.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And one of the issues with the events and the way they're framed, because they're framed as best on best on best, which is great. And that is true that all of the best teams are there, but the format is such that they don't play each other throughout, right? So you could say to me, hey, like, all right, so this past weekend, right? Here are the best teams that are here. But if you look at the way the schedule is set up, say Homan, right? Rachel Homan is here. She's not playing Anna Hasselberg, or didn't play Anna Hasselberg in the round robin. So if she goes on and wins it and doesn't play Anna Hasselberg at any point, is it really a best on best? And you can say the same thing about the Players Championship, which is the one the players seem to say, oh, that's the pinnacle. That's the biggest event if you can win the Players Championship.
Yeah.
And okay, there are fewer teams there. I think they go with 12. But it's the same thing. You can get through it without playing everybody. And I think that's the number one complaint that people have had about the new Briar Scotties format, is they don't have to play everybody to get through. The difference, I would say, potentially, is that you're still going through great teams, and the best teams you're still probably going to have to see. But I agree with that criticism of the new Briar and Scotties format. So you want to see best on best. And with the slams, you're getting a lot of really good games for sure, but you're not necessarily getting best on best throughout. So that I think is one of the issues with it, that they can't claim to me with a straight face that each of these events pits the best players in the world against each other, when the best players in the world aren't always playing each other. And the way the pools are going to be set up and the seedings are set up, more often than not in the round robin, you're going to miss those peak games.
Yeah, I mean, like, looking back at the event that happened this year, like last week rather, Brendan Botcher played Team Gushu on the Tuesday, I think.
Right.
So, or the Tuesday or the Wednesday. So it wasn't on TV.
Yeah.
And so some of these like premier matchups that you want to see, they're not on TV. And then by the time they are on TV, oh, this team's 2-2. Who have they played? What's going on? And then to like double down on that, the weekend is fun. I think it's fun, the sort of around the rings coverage.
Yeah, I agree.
But every event just comes down to an 8-team single elimination playoff.
Yeah.
Which like, okay, I don't think that necessarily gives you the best, the best team for the week isn't necessarily going to come from that kind of format. Basically 2 wins will get you into a tiebreaker at least.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would like to see the slams maybe try to go to like more pool play. So instead of having, when you have 12 teams, have 6 teams per pool, play everybody in the pool, and then go to a like top 4, go to a page system or something. So the TV still gets what they want, which is a single game
for sure,
but you get the opportunity to play more teams, or just say forget it, like we'll take 12 teams and everybody will play each other and it'll be a week, and whoever has the most wins on Sunday, that's it.
That's what I'd like to see the Players Championship become, if they're going to say that this is like the pinnacle event. It's not possible given where it is on the calendar, I don't think, given its place after the World Championship, which also kind of, I think, compromises the Players Championship. That, like last year, Bruce Mount wins the World Championship Sunday night. Tuesday, they're still hungover playing in the Players Championship. So is it really the pinnacle event when they're... Now, they would tell you they're taking it very seriously and all that. The other thing, Scott, you mentioned, it seems like a warm-up for the team. So I look back. Silvana Tiranzoni and her team have won 47 straight World Championships, right? How many Grand Slams do you think that they have won in that time?
I feel like they've won 1.
You are correct. They have won 1. Do you know which one? You don't have to necessarily even give me the year.
I thought it was the Open.
No. So, Scott, it was the National.
The National would have been my second guess.
Okay, in 2022. So last fall is when they won the National. Otherwise, they have not won. Oh, excuse me. Also the 2019 Champions Cup, but we don't really count that one. So of the active slams, they've won 1 in this 4-year stretch. So again, that kind of brings up the question of, well, what do they actually tell us in terms of the competition, again, because it is so short, right? And how could we sort of assess that? The same thing with Nicholas Edin. He's won 4 in his career, and one of the criticisms that he's gotten through the course of his career and all the world championships he's won is, well, he doesn't win Grand Slams. But how do we actually put that into perspective? And one of the things that I struggle with as a curling fan and somebody who talks about it is there seems to be a significant disconnect between the players and the fans on these. That for the players, they view them as very important events, if not for some of them the most important events. You heard Joel Reiternaz talk about that when they won last year, and partly because given where they're from, it's easier for them to get into a world championship than it is into a Grand Slam. But they talked about how significant it was to them. But from a fan perspective, because there's nothing to really differentiate them, it's very difficult to remember who won and what is the significance of this, right? And I know people maybe don't like it when curling gets compared to golf or tennis because they're very easy comparisons, but each Grand Slam in tennis has its own thing. Even the 2 hard court ones are very different, right? The one in Australia, everybody melts. And in New York, they play until 4 a.m. and people are drunk. Right? That's sort of the culture of those 2 things. And certainly the 4 golf majors have their own culture to them. And even the PGA, which is kind of bland, at least last year, you had the guy or this year, you had the guy who was the PGA, the pro at a club, who went on this run. And you have this really fun moment. But the Grand Slams of curling don't have those, with the possible exception of the players being at Maple Leaf Gardens. That's the only kind of distinguishing thing. But that's one of the struggles with it, is that the players really take it way more seriously than I think the fans do, as a signifier of who's great.
Yeah, and I think that's fair for the players, right? These are the biggest opportunities to make money during the season. I think that's true. And and getting into one is like a coup in and of itself by your saying that like, oh, we're one of the best teams, was able to get invited. So yeah, for the players it is like super important, and they get TV exposure, so their sponsors are happy, all this stuff, right? Like business wise, it makes a lot of sense. I don't know how to solve that disconnect from the fans unless like you do something drastic, like you say, like make each event different, because they all are all the same in the arena of some CHL team.
Yeah.
There's like nothing differentiating it. So at least from the TV perspective, right? Maybe if you go in person, it is different. There are different vibes, but I tend to think no.
Yeah, and again, it's they all start Tuesday. The TV coverage always starts Thursday. Sometimes I think at the Players Championship, it's 6 teams make the playoffs, and the top 2 get a bye. But okay, that's nice. And even when they've done A draw, A, B, C, it's still basically you lose the 3rd game before the playoffs and you're out, right? It still fundamentally gets to that and down to, as you say, quarter, semi, and the final. So given this, Scott, from a viewer's perspective, and because we still have 4 more of these for the season, how do you think that fans should approach the Grand Slams? That when you go to sit down and watch it, like how do we potentially as fans get something out of this that we wouldn't necessarily get out of like the Autumn Gold Spiel, where Jennifer Jones and Caitlin Laws are there and they might play each other in that? Like how do we, like, where is this? And from a fan perspective, is it more than just, hey, these are good teams and pretty good production value, this hopefully is a fun game?
Yeah, I think maybe if we could hype up the big matchups a little more, we in theory should know ahead of time, oh, Jennifer Jones is playing Rachel Holman at this time, or Hasselberg and Tiranzoni are playing each other at this time. So make it such that it's appointment viewing by hyping up sort of the big matchups. Even the stuff that we don't see all the time, right? Like the international teams against a Canadian team that maybe we don't always get to see, or that's sort of the first level I can think of. And I starting the TV coverage when teams have already played 2 games and they've got 2 more to go, you don't really have a feel for how they're doing. Like, what's the ice like? How are they playing? Like, you get maybe some percentages, but like in its 2-game sample, that doesn't really tell you much.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I got. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just, we take them as cash deals, and cash deals with better production value, really. And that's really what it is. And just say that these are really good fields. Take the games for what they are. You hope that they're entertaining. For me, one of the things that hurts it is 8 end games. I don't like 8 end games as much as a 10 end game. It feels really constricted, especially if they burn the first end, which they still seem to do somewhat frequently. So I'm not crazy about that. I do like the around the rings coverage for the most part. I wouldn't want it on really important games. Like, that sounds awful, but when they do it on semifinals and the quarterfinals and stuff, but you can actually see the full game when you jump around. It's kind of like if you only watch the red zone for football, I don't think you can be a good football analyst. Like, it's a really good TV show and it's really entertaining. It's how I watch football at this point, but I don't think I could really give you an in-depth understanding of why teams are good based on only watching the red zone. And it's the same thing with this, that when you watch the around the rings coverage, you can see the skip shots, and the skips are really good, but you kind of miss the setup of the end and how it really is a full team game. So it's the difference there. So I would never want, say, if for whatever reasons, the Olympics did this, which I'm sure they never would, have the 2 gold medal games together while the 2 bronze medal games are happening at 4 across the sheet, and we're just jumping between them all. Like, that would be awful, right?
Yeah,
So
that would be
you wouldn't
bad.
want that on games that are really significant, but it's nice on a Saturday night in January, the Open's on. All right, let's just go around the rings. But part of me thinks that sort of the jumping around of the coverage makes you think, all right, each individual game isn't so important
Isn't
that I
as
have to
important.
watch that game, right? And
Yeah.
so that's all part of it. I don't know. There's just I don't know what they can do, because you can't make each slam a 9-day thing or an 8-day thing and have full round robins with both the men and the women to make it like real best on best. So it's a tough spot for them. I think one of the other things we have to remember as we kind of crap all over the Grand Slams is that, from all accounts, the ratings are up and people are making money off of this. So for what it is, it's been successful. I think it's just finding whatever that balance is between the way the fans view them and the way the players view them, and trying to figure out really exactly how they fit within the overall schedule.
Yeah. And I sort of think, like, if we're not being captured by the marketing of the slams, like, we both really like curling to the point that we are sitting here talking about it into microphones at each other, and we're not like super stoked when the slams are upcoming, right? Because, like, we've covered these for, what is this, our 5th year doing this podcast, and it's the same, right? Like, we thought about doing a preview and we're like, we have other stuff, and like, we're both busy, and what else could we say other than all these teams are good?
Yeah.
Anyone could win.
Well, not anyone, but
I mean, there's probably 10 teams out of the 16
yeah,
that could win, or 10 of the 15
yeah.
that you wouldn't be like, oh my goodness.
No, no, you're right. But then whoever wins, you forget who it is by Wednesday.
Yeah, which is a shame, right? Because, like,
It is.
there's the players obviously care and make money on it, and it's big deal to them, and we're just kind of like, on to the next. Maybe it's because there's too many of them. When there were 7, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe fewer, and make them more special.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, because I feel like I couldn't tell you now who won Canada Cups, but when Canada Cups were still a thing, I could probably tell you who won the last few Canada Cups. And with the Scotties and the Brier the last few years and World Championships, frankly, it's kind of easy to remember who won. So you can keep track of who wins those things. But yeah, with the slams, it's much harder to keep track of. And again, it's because it doesn't hold the same significance, I think. And they've done a really good job of making them good television products, of taking them around the country. They didn't end up doing Vegas, but maybe they'll get back to trying Vegas. It was on the schedule. Yeah. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I really think that, having been to Continental Cups, multiple in Vegas, and been to a World Championship in Vegas, that a slam is a good Vegas event, right? I think Vegas is a weekend town. Take a weekend curling event there. The question is, will people travel for it? But you would ask the same thing about the Continental Cup, because that was an exhibition. So maybe people would travel for a slam for the same reason. Hopefully that would be the case. But there just, I think, has to be something to differentiate them in the minds of fans, or we just accept that they're cash deals that don't really have any cannon fodder.
Yeah. What do you think, Sean, of giving each team its own uniform color and saying, your color has to stay the same, and it can't be the same as any other team's color that is participating in this event? If you want to go to cash deals with wearing different colors, sure. But the number 1 ranked team in the field gets to choose the color that they want.
Yeah.
And you can put your sponsors patches on, but like, the rest of your jacket is blue. The rest of your jacket is orange, whatever it is. And then at least there's like I feel like they look like NASCAR drivers where you can't tell anybody apart because everybody's got all the crests everywhere.
Yeah.
And there are some cool uniforms like Adine with the Viking, but not enough teams are doing that to give them distinct looks. You know what I mean?
Right.
And when you're watching team sports, you're cheering for laundry, famously, as Jerry Seinfeld said. And so maybe in this kind of an event, you can bring some of that into it and say, like, I'm cheering for the moose jackets, or I'm cheering for the elk. I'm just thinking of
you're thinking of land mammals.
Yeah, big land mammals. But that kind of thing, maybe. I don't know, because watching the Briar and the Scotties, right, you are familiar with those uniforms, those colors from each of the provinces. Sure. Even the at the Worlds, that Scotland team's going to be wearing their dark blue, and Canada's going to be wearing their black and red for some reason. But like, they're distinctive enough that when you're flipping the channels on TV, you can see it and say, oh, okay, this is like a thing, and I know who's on which side.
Yeah. I also wonder if team names would be fun, right? Let's come up with some team names, like, just, again, something to differentiate these from other things. And I will put in the description below, if you haven't, the link to the episode we did where we go through in great detail with each individual event how we propose to change it so that they are more distinctive. So let us know if we're crazy in this, if we're way off base, if you love the slams, if you think they're better or more memorable than the Euros, the Canadian Championship, the World Championship. We won't put the Pan Continental in there yet because it hasn't had enough time to cook, and it's the depth of the field isn't there. But the Euros are very, very good. The Worlds are good. We obviously are partial to the Scotties and the Briar here. So let us know what you think. Scott, one other thing this week that we did not talk about in September when it was announced, but the induction ceremony happened last Thursday night, the 19th of October. 4 of your newest Canada Sports Hall of Famers, the Ferbey 4, were inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame. Of course, Cheryl Bernard is the CEO there, so a lot of curling content. The headliners were Tessa Virtue and Scott Moore, but the Ferbey 4 were included in that class. Scott, we've talked about them before, not in too much detail, but in some of the look back episodes that we've done. But just briefly, what is the legacy of the Ferbey 4 for you, and where are they in the pantheon of Canadian curling?
So their legacy is long, Sean. It's they were the first team that I remember that threw out of order. They sort of made that a thing. They developed the zone system for calling weight, which is pretty influential. I don't know that too many teams use it like all the time, but it was definitely something that helped the communication from sweepers to the house across the game. I still use it at club night, sometimes say ask for a 1 or ask for a 2. So that's pretty important. And they also were sort of the catalyst. I don't know if they were the catalyst behind the professionalization of curling, but they certainly benefited from the professionalization of curling in that they were not having to play Kevin Martin all the time. Decided to boycott the Briar for a couple of years, but their impact is huge. Whether you like them or not, sometimes they were annoying to watch. And like any team that wins too much, except for Silvana Tiranzoni, they get like, can somebody else win? Like Colleen Jones was like that. Can somebody else win now? But they're just like very dominant, changed the sport in a lot of ways, and made it look more like the sport we see today.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember an interview with Randy Ferbey when they were in the midst of those 4 straight Briars, and somebody asked him about the fitness side of it and having Rock and Pfeiffer being really just so much better at sweeping than anybody else they were playing against, and Ferbey said something like, yeah, the guys go to the gym a lot. And the follow-up was like, the guys go to the gym. And he was like, yeah, the guys go to the gym a lot.
Yeah.
The clear implication of what that meant. But it did change things. And you're right. And Randy Ferbey calling the game, but having Dave Nedwin throw last, who's so good for so long, and his little teacup, not a full pullback, but his little just pour spot of tea delivery was, they were so good. And yeah, you don't know. There's a lot of what ifs that certainly Kevin Martin would bring up if he was participating in Alberta Playdowns at the time. But the reality was that he was not. And Ferbey won 4 straight and had this incredible run. And now they are in the Hall of Fame and were on one of my favorite episodes of Corner Gas, which we have profiled and done a full deep dive on the show before. So they have that going for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was just thinking they might have influenced that Kevin Martin team that I think is probably is the best team I ever saw, with Ben Hebert and Mark Kennedy playing front end, because they both slid and had a lefty and a righty,
and kind of similar builds too. Like Marcel Rock and Ben Hebert are similar physically, as are Scott Pfeiffer and Mark Kennedy. Like very similar in the physicality.
So I think you could ask Kevin Martin on, maybe he has a show, I don't know. You could ask him if there was any inspiration drawn from that. He'd probably tell you no, that Mark Kennedy was just so good and he wanted him on his team. Makes sense. But
that has borne out to be correct.
I see like some things that were taken from the Ferbey team on that team and the rest of the curling world for sure. So hugely influential team.
Yeah, and even last week when we were talking with Team Davies, they said that as the front end there, they sweep on opposite sides and are closed both on each side. So that's part of the reason that they work well as a front end. So yeah, that certainly has come together, and more of a comfort level of teams throwing out of order and finding success. Of course, Tirinzoni being the most recent prominent example of that situation. So congratulations to the Ferbey 4. Congratulations to Scott Moyer and Tessa Virtue and the entire class of 2023 for Canada's Sports Hall of Fame. You know who else is in there, Scott?
Tell me.
You got a wheelchair basketball player, Danielle Piers, Phyllis Baumberry, who was a softball player, and you have Georges St. Pierre, of course, famous MMA athlete, and then judo coach Hiroshi Nakamura and Oren Lyons, who is identified as a lacrosse pioneer. So the latter two are in as builders. So congratulations to the whole class.
Yeah, congratulations to them. Did you know, Sean, my friend Tim used to work at the Canada Sports Hall of Fame?
I did not know that. What did Tim do?
I think he put the displays together.
Nice. So he's like a curator.
Well, like physically put them together.
Oh, okay. He didn't conceptualize them. He was told this goes here.
Yeah.
Okay. More of a builder position.
Yeah. I think it was when we were in university, it was like a summer job.
Yeah. Have you ever been to the Canada Sports Hall of Fame?
I have, but I don't think I've gone in to like the Hall of Fame itself, but I've been to COP. I rode that bobsled track famously. I don't know if it's famously that I did that, but I did that and it was really fun.
Yeah. Very exciting. Yeah. You've, I don't know if you told that story on the show before, but I've heard that story. Yeah. Sounds like a lot of fun. And I don't know if you saw this last week, but the people in Italy are not going to have that opportunity because they are going to do the bobsledding at the 2026 Olympics in a different country because of cost overrides. So they're not actually building a bobsled track or a sliding track, not a bobsled track, a sliding track. So they're going to be in another country. Other countries have already put up their hands to host the sliding events.
Wow.
I'm thinking, Scott, this is a preview of what's to come with the Winter Olympics, where they're going to be spread out. And one event will be here. Like it doesn't seem sustainable for one country to host them anymore because nobody seems to want to.
Yeah, that's too bad. because Sean famously again, look at me. We're gonna go to the 2026 Olympics, right? We haven't really talked about it, but
We haven't talked about it, but we would like to.
Yeah, and we'll try to get that Olympic media credential and see what we can do.
Yeah, that's our gold medal, the Olympic media credential.
I've once that happens, the show's over. I've never been to Italy, Sean.
Yeah, I was just in Italy. That's why we didn't have a show for a couple of weeks, because I was away.
That's right. So yeah, do you recommend?
As long as you're okay with everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people smoking. That's
a lot of smoking.
I really did notice that. A lot of smoking there in Italy, but also a lot of really good food and delightful wine. So not too
take
shabby.
The good with the bad.
Yeah, exactly. But it is, yes, a beautiful country to be sure. So with that, we will say thank you so much for listening, everybody. That'll do it for this week. If you have not yet, please do subscribe wherever you get your shows, likes, comments, all that good stuff. Helps us grow the show. And of course, you can always let us know what you want to hear by sending us an electronic mail, gameofstonespodcast@gmail.com. Head on over to gameofstonespod.com. Past episodes are there, plus a link to the merch. Winter is here. Curling season is here for a lot of folks here in Canada. If you want some merch, the hoodies, the toque, hat, all that good stuff is over there on gameofstonespod.com. You can follow along with social media. I have no idea what's going to happen with Twitter. Elon Musk seems to want to make it into WeChat, but with a fee. And for some reason, he won't let me just follow the people that I follow or see the stuff from the people I follow. So I haven't been using it much anymore. Who knows? Maybe it'll get better, but all reports are that it's not. But if you want to follow us, we still have the account at Game of Stones Pod on Twitter, Instagram. It's Game of Stones Podcast on Facebook. We'll try to find something fun for this curling season, because Twitter it's just so hard to engage now. So we'll see if we can find something else to engage during games, which is the most fun part of having Twitter. But again, I can't see what the people I follow are tweeting in the order I want to see it in. So, and all the tweet decks are gone, all the good ones. So like, I don't know what to do with that.
Do we have a Blue Sky invite?
We don't at the moment. No.
Well, if anybody wants to throw us a Blue Sky invite,
throw us one. I'll set that up. So, but yeah, for the moment, that's what we got going on social media. So Scott, I don't think we've talked since we've played. We have played 2 games, and we are 1-1 on the season. We took 3 weeks off, and then played another game. So far, not too shabby, I think.
No, it's been fun. I think we were all a little rusty the first game.
For sure.
I'll say. We didn't play a full game, did we? Did we play 8? I don't remember.
The first night, no. It was too much of a beatdown. But we were on pace too.
We were on pace too, and it was not. It was like the score was a little bigger than the actual game was. The game felt closer, but you give up a few points here and there.
Yep.
And there you go. And then on this past week, I had a good game. You had a good game.
Yeah.
We all sort of had pretty good games, and it was close. There were, a couple of situations where we got ourselves in trouble, but we managed to pull it out in the end, and got a couple of big misses. We made it tough. Tough.
Yeah, I think we outplayed the other team, but certainly in one end, like it was an even number at end, just one miss. Either I think Jesse's last or your first one, and it was too deep, and we were set up for like a 4, and then like 2 feet, and they were able to. It gives them the break out of it. We still scored that end, but that's one of those ones where if it's 3 feet higher, we score at least 2, probably more, and the game's totally different. So, but that's the vagaries of the sport.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been nice to stick around after the game. I wasn't able to the second one, but get the socialization back in, and it's been fun. It's been fun. I think our goal will be to stay in B this round. I think that's a good goal. Shooting for the A, probably not.
Right.
But yeah, if we can stick around, I think that'd be pretty good.
Hard to do with the new system that we have, but
true it is.
We'll see what happens. We'll do our best with 3 games left in this draw. The weather's cooling down. Feels like curling. I actually went to a game the other day, Scott. It was dark when I went to the game, first game of the season where I went in the dark. And granted, it was the late game, but for the first time. So that's what I'm used to, is walking to the club in the dark. So curling season at our level, at our rec level here in Ottawa, is ongoing, and we are looking forward to sharing the entirety of the season with you. The pros, us, everything in the middle. So do follow along, subscribe. We'll be back with you again next week. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.